Welcome to the Dylan Show. How y'all doing? Hope all is well with everyone listening and tuning in. Appreciate you guys for this incredible and unbelievable season. Almost wrapped up season 4, episode 19 here and ready to go. Only one more episode left for the season. Can you believe that, guys? I just want to say again, thank you guys for your continued support. It's meant a lot, truly, and it's been a season of growth and a lot of maturity for myself. But I've seen the show grow a lot of different aspects, and I can't thank you guys enough for that because everything that I do is kind of benefit off what you guys do to support me as well. So thank you guys. Enough of me talking. Let's introduce our guest for this week is Mr. Nigel Marcellus. Woo! First of all, man, appreciate you for joining me and just kind of how's everything going in your world right now?
Man, I appreciate you having me on the show. Shout out to Donetta. You know what I mean? Netta, she the GOAT forever, forever, love her
Yes, sir.
forever. But as far as my world, man, it's been a blessing, bro. Just I feel like I'm on the brink of something major right now, and I have a lot
Mhm.
going on. So I've been a bit overwhelmed, but just taking it one day at a time and just excited for the possibilities of the future. So I'm just a lot's going on, but I'm taking care of me. I'm blessed. I'm happy, and
Yeah.
that's all I could really ask for.
That's good, man. Nigel, real quick for people watching or listening that may not know a lot about you, could you just give people like a little brief overview about you, just maybe like where you're from, what you're doing in your life now, just some things you've been able to do to get you where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Nigel Marcellus. I'm born and raised in Malden, Massachusetts, which is like 10 minutes outside of Boston. So easy to say Boston. I'm also trying to put my mind on the map. But I also have roots in Kentucky as far as family in Kentucky. I go to school right now. I'm getting my PhD in communication. My research topic is on Black love. So I study Black love. I'm a big advocate for healthy love and, showing people that healthy love exists. I'm an aspiring talk show host. So the work that you're doing, we both align in that piece of like being able to have these real, necessary, needed conversations. And I'm also a children's book author. So I would say that's really the big three I tell people. I'm getting my PhD right now. I'm a children's book author, and I'm an aspiring talk show host.
I want to start with your books because I had a conversation with an author a few months ago. And for me, I'm a reader a lot. Like my teachers will always tell me, like I always see you with a book in your hand, and I love that because I grew up in an educational family. But I'm very aware that like reading literacy is down, of course, and just reading isn't like a cool thing in America or in the world in general today. So I want to ask you, what kind of inspired you to write your children's book? And so far, what has continued to allow you to continue doing what you do within writing children's books?
Yeah. So for one, I want to say I also have a background in education as far as like my family
Mhm.
dynamics. You know what I mean? So my mom worked in education, my dad worked in education. So I didn't really have the luxury to not care about education,
Yeah.
right? I remember during the summertime, my mom used to make me read not just like the school reading list, but she used to always be like, "No, you got to read a lot more books," right?
Yeah.
But to answer your question, for one, the truth is I didn't really ever aspire to write a children's book ever, right? For me, what ended up happening is for my master's program, I went to this like very, very innovative program at Boston University. And essentially, we had to come up with um, an idea for an app. And my idea for an app was to create a Netflix for children's books. And the more I started doing research on children's books, the more I found out that Black characters are severely underrepresented, and there's more white characters and animal slash object characters than Black characters and other diverse children characters. So for me, when I started thinking about what were my favorite growing up, know, Midnight Moon, Under the Blue Sky, Given Tree, Dr. Seuss. I'm thinking of all these books, and I'm thinking like, wow, none of them actually had a character that looked like me. And I started to think about like, what was that impact of me in my life of not being able to see myself in these spaces, right? And I feel like at that time, I didn't really want to be in grad school. You know what I mean? I felt like my heart was calling out to do something completely different. But based on my circumstances and not understanding where I can go and not being surrounded by people in the different industries that I wanted to be, it didn't seem real to me. So I just followed the path that I knew, education. So I wanted to end up writing a story that really spoke to where I was in my life, but also taught younger kids that you don't have to limit yourself to entertainment. You don't have to limit yourself to being an athlete. But if you do want to do that, or if you choose anything else, it's really about resilience, perseverance, not giving up, trying over and over again. So I mixed both of those worlds together and just wrote a story because I love writing. Writing was my first love. That was my introduction into creativity. It's the really like the foundation that my whole life has been based in. It's just writing. So when I was writing the story, I showed it to my mom jokingly. Like, hey mom, look, I just like randomly wrote this story for kids.
Mm-hmm.
And when she read it, she was like, yo, this is good. And my first impression was like, mom, stop playing. Like you're supposed to say that. You my mom, like, what's good with you? Like, of course it's gonna be good, and you telling me that. But what she ended up doing is ended up sharing it with some of her teacher friends that she knew.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, no, there is something really here. Like, you really need to think about publishing it. And I've never published before. I don't know anybody in my life who's published anything before. So I wrote that in 2017, and the journey to get it published ended up being 2023. So it took me a while just to even figure that out and get it published. And yeah, now I have a children's book under my belt. But I say that to say, like, it was one of those dreams that I didn't even have for myself, but just going through the journey of life and my process and what was going on, it led me to it. And now it's one of the things that I look back now and it's like, I can't even imagine a life without writing a children's book.
Yeah. Nigel, could you talk about your parents? I've watched some of your videos over time, and I know that your parents are two important people in your life, and they have kind of well-rounded you into the person you are today. Just talk about them and just the impact that they've made on what your life is today.
Yeah. So to really talk about my parents, I have to talk about where they come from, right?
Mm-hmm.
My dad comes from the projects in Boston. He grew up very, very poor in a family of basically 8 kids, right? His parents divorced when he was younger, and and he's worked his way through education um, to reach a level of success that was very rare for where he came from. My mom comes from a completely different environment. My mom comes from the country of Kentucky. For anybody who's familiar with Kentucky, she's from like the eastern part, which is really known for being like a very poor part. And especially with being a Black family in a predominantly kind of white state, like very, very poor. I've never knew my mom's father. You know, me, as far as I knew, my mom didn't even have a father until I was like much older, and I found out like, oh wow, you really did have a dad. But again, my mom came into a family on her mom's side, I want to say of 5. On her dad's side, it's over 20 kids. You know what I mean? But she worked her way through education and kind of made out becoming a teacher. My dad became a administrator. So I say that to say, like, my parents, when they met and they got married, they were very, very intentional in planning me. Like, I'm the only child. They waited to have me. So a lot of their siblings already had kids. They were like one of the last people to, even though they were like the oldest respectively, or one of the oldest in the family, they waited to have me um, because they wanted to make sure that they were financially ready, mentally, spiritually ready in order to bring me in. And recently they just celebrated 41 years of marriage. So my parents, to be honest with you, are what I, in my mind, is like the foundation of really making me the man that I am today, because they waited for me, because they were strategic with me, because they really were intentional. They were able to set me up with a lot of different opportunities and a lot of different privileges. And they always made sure I had my roots within family of both sides, right? So whether it was in the city, whether it was in the country, whether they lived in the suburbs, if they were in a different state, no matter what, my parents always try to keep me rooted and grounded in community and family relationships, and being able to really, my parents have the saying, like, when you do right by other people, they do right by you. And I feel like that was really how they raised me. It sums it up perfectly. Like, it's really being able to be a good, genuine person to the fullest extent that I can be.
How, and I say this kind of just being a part of this generation and seeing what I see on my own social media feed. there's not a lot of 41 years of marriage being posted and promoted via social media for our eyes to see. And you talked about healthy love earlier. Like, how do you kind of go about in today's world still trying to promote the way you saw your parents fall in love and still love today, but the way you also want to promote it for your own life? How do you kind of go about that in a way that I wouldn't say it's not talked about, but I would say it's not promoted
Mhm.
or looked at in a positive way anymore? When I say that, I mean like marriage. It's not I would say a normal thing within the people of our age generation anymore. So how do you kind of just talk about that more in depth in a way that you continue to want to see it in the truthful matter of you?
Yeah, no, that's a really really great question. It starts with being able to first get people to understand that healthy love exists, and
Yeah.
it's not just one runoff, right? I think what we often do is when we think of love, we think of stuff that we care about, when we think about relationships and anything in that nature, we always base it one in what's familiar to us. So our
Mhm.
parents, however our parents' dynamic, that's our first introduction to love. Then once whatever that introduction is, whether it's toxic, whether it's healthy, whether it's whatever spectrum it hits on that scale, right? Then we base it off relationships that we see, whether it's in the media, whether it's in TV, social media, like you're saying, and we put that on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And I think what I've learned just on research, reading, my own personal work is that we want to create a guide. And that's what I try to get people to understand. It's not about putting somebody's relationship on a pedestal. So even when I look at my parents, the best thing it did for me is it shows me it's possible. And that's
Yeah.
a privilege that a lot of people don't have. But at the same time, just because it's possible for them doesn't mean it's automatically possible for me. The
Yeah.
only difference between it is now I have a reference in order to look at and say,
Yeah.
okay, this is possible. It is doable. And what I try to get people to understand, especially when it comes to love, is that for a lot of us, we've never experienced love, we've never seen love, and the things in
Yeah.
which we call love isn't love. So first, we really have to break down and understand what is love, right? What is a healthy version of love? And it's not about like looking at our parents' relationship and saying like that whole relationship defines love. It's like what elements about the relationship can I draw in and add to my reference book of what love looks like. So like for example, there's aspects of my parents' relationship that I would never want for myself, even though they've been together for 41 years. But
Yeah.
there's also aspects that I absolutely cherish and love and I want to add to my own reference book. So now I can practice not only that love, but also how to be loving too. So to answer the question, because I'm like long-winded, I think it really
Mhm.
comes down to like showing people that it's really about taking these different qualities and being able to practice those qualities of love.
Yeah.
So it's rather than chasing this image of like, it has to look like this and it has to be like that. It's one, how do we take these qualities and how do we practice this not only when we're with a partner, but how do we practice this for ourselves? Because the foundation of love also starts within how we love ourselves. So
Mhm.
the ways in which you love yourself, the ways in which you surround yourself in communal love will help you learn how to show up better for love in general when it comes to relationships. So it's really breaking down and getting to that foundation for yourself and understanding those different qualities that really are love versus what we're familiar with. I think what's familiar to us often gets in the way of like how we actually love.
I like that, man. Thank you. Your Instagram is filled with you having different kind of like conversations and questions for people, whether it's at events or kind of just being on the streets with people and asking them questions. Talk about like your in-depth interviews with people via your social media. Like, what was the process of starting that? Why did you start it? And so far, what kind of growth have you seen within what you're doing via your social medias?
Oh yeah, absolutely. First of all, I just wanted to just shout you out, bro. The questions you got, fire. Like you doing
Appreciate
your
it, man.
big one with these questions. I would say for me, I had a long journey of always knowing who I wanted to be,
Yeah,
but not being courageous and going after it.
yeah,
And I feel like in order, like talk about my Instagram and social media and the work that I'm doing now, I have to acknowledge that,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of the things that I'm doing now, what people don't understand, is things that I've always wanted to do, but I was waiting for people's validation. I was waiting for people's acceptance. I was waiting for somebody to tell me, yo, you can do it. And when I didn't get that, it made me feel even more insecure about myself. And I feel
Yeah.
like, although I grew up in a very healthy household and I had parents who were very intentional with me, there were some things that they couldn't protect me from within the environment in which I was raised, society,
Yeah.
etc. So I grew up very, very insecure, very, very self-conscious, and feeling like I wasn't deserving and I was very unworthy, because I learned my worth is in what I do and not who I am. So the more I achieve, the more I work toward things, the more I was the best, the smartest, the coolest, the best, whatever that accolade is, that's
Yeah.
when I found my worth. When I didn't have that, I felt worthless, right? I bring that up because so much of my work is really based in getting people to understand and recognize their worth, and being able to recognize that you are good enough, and what is the steps that we take in order to feel as if we're good enough, to feel as if we belong, to feel as if we're matter. So when it comes to my work right now, I'm doing a run where, like, I go to these really big conferences where, I don't know if you've ever been to a conference, or the people listening ever been to a conference like Forbes 30 under 30 or
Mm-hmm.
Black Tech Week. But when you're in those spaces, sometimes it feels like everybody is putting on almost like a persona to show what they do and to make it sound like as great and as cool. And for me, being somebody who had like that root and self-conscious, I would get in those spaces and imposter syndrome would hit me, and I'd be like, man, I don't deserve to be here. I feel
Yeah.
like I'm good enough. And I really wanted to start asking people like real deep questions, not like, what do you do and where do you see your career going? But I wanted to ask people like, yo, what are you healing from? Because what I realized is when I was asking people that, and they're sharing, oh, I'm healing from imposter syndrome. I'm healing
Yeah.
from not living up to my own expectations. I'm healing from this toxic relationship that, you know what I mean? Like, when you hear people are actually going through, it almost like
Yeah.
makes you feel as if like you're not as alone in this world, right? Like,
Yeah.
wow, I can't believe you're in this space and all the work that you do is like so incredible, but you're also struggling with
Yeah.
just trying to like have confidence. Damn, I can relate to that. So I think like my process started out really early, just trying to make videos, trying to do something to like really encourage and empower people. But then when I really step courageously into who I am and what I want to do, and being a talk show host that's based in love and healing and mental health and people's personal journeys of just trying to get to wherever they dream of going, the more it opened up the door for me to feel comfortable asking people real questions right from the jump of like, what are you healing from? What is something that you accomplished recently that deserves to be celebrated, but you downplayed? What are what is something been holding you back for a while that you're finally ready to let go? You know what I mean? Like, I really try to be that person to like really hit on some of those really meaningful topics and conversations to get people to open up and feel safe to say like, I don't have it all figured out. Because regardless of how I found in the interview, I do not have it all figured out myself. And I'm
Yeah.
still like, damn, woke up today, like, oh God, what am I going to do today? How am I going to get there? You know what I mean? So just being able to create space for other people in order to express themselves authentically is really what I'm trying to build my platform on, and allowing people to really just be themselves.
Nigel, if you could give, and this is for me and everyone else listening as well, but like a piece of advice for like maybe someone maybe in the shoes you are in, or any career possible in the world, but maybe these people are trying to find courage about themselves, or maybe they're trying to find their love and they haven't found that love. What advice would you give to someone maybe in a world where they're trying to figure out what they're truly good at, in a world that maybe they're lacking confidence in what they do? What advice would you give to somebody to just kind of keep them going in what they're trying to figure out in life?
I would say right now, you are always worthy and deserving. Period. Like, you are worthy now. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to prove anything. Like, who you are, worthy and special and needed and necessary. And already in your life, you have impacted so many people
Yeah.
that would not be the same today without you. I would absolutely start with that foundation, because I think so many people are really just trying to prove their worth. And
Hmm.
I need people to understand you do not have to prove it. You are already worthy, and it's okay. Once I start there, the next thing I would say is everybody's scared. I promise you, like, no matter what people say, the front they put on, like, a lot of people are scared. And if you're nervous, that means you're living, because you're on the brink of being very, very uncomfortable, which means you're in a path that's going to put you in a position to grow no matter what you do, no matter what decision you make. But you have to be open and willing to grow, to learn, and to make those mistakes. And I think that's another thing that's really hard. You know what I mean? It's like putting yourself in that position to make mistakes, and like, it might not work out, but you still have to commit and understand that no matter what happens, it's all working out in your favor. You might not recognize it right now in this moment, but sooner or later, you're going to look back and you're going to be like, oh, I get it. This is what it taught me. Oh, this is the lesson I learned. And this is how it pushed me in the future. Like, there's a lot of stuff when it comes to my own personal journey. For example, like the children's book, it took me almost 7 years to get it published. That
Yeah.
whole time I was trying to get it published, in between the 6 years, I wanted to give up. I wanted to quit. And I didn't think I could keep doing it. I was tired.
Yeah.
But my support system was like, no, you got to do it. Keep going. Keep going. Eventually, when I got it published, the most proud moment was like, man, it's finally published. Cool. When I would go to schools and I was telling people the journey and the story of like, oh yeah, this is how I got here. This is how long it took me. I had kids coming up to me like, wow, it took you 6 years. So you really didn't give up. So you kept trying. Wow, you're the character in the book. That happened with the character. And it clicked. It was like, man, I had to go through this to understand, to really be able to give this story. So you never know what's working out in your favor, even when things feel in the moment like it's going wrong. And then for the people who really just like, I don't know, I'm lost. I'm trying to figure it out. As you walk the path shows itself. So you're not, when it comes to like climb ever, it's not a quantum leap. You take one step at a time. And as you take that step, you're going to look and say, okay, I see my next, I must see my next step. So it's being able to really, to be honest with you, recognize that like you're worthy, being able to accept being nervous and still pushing through, which
Yeah.
that is real courage. You know what I mean? Being nervous and taking that step. It's also about understanding like no matter what happens along the way, it's teaching you, it's putting you in a better position to in the future. And that even if you don't know where you're going, just taking that one step is going to help you get to wherever you want to go. So that's probably like the advice that I would give somebody for sure.
Appreciate that, man. Because it's not easy to do what you do, and I say that because you're going about topics and things that are, I would say, sensitive in today's world. And so to
Mhm.
continue to go about writing a children's book in the manner that you wanted to do it in the way you did it, and specifying a lot of your work towards young Black people is important because, you know, a lot of them and a lot of us, we didn't have a role model. We didn't have someone we could be able to look up to, like you talked about the imbecility of, you know, people in young children's book that were like us. So I appreciate what you do, and I appreciate your words because that's real. And I want to ask you as well, kind of your work is, a lot of your work is specified around the youth and uplifting the youth and being around the youth and helping them know that they can have a future in this world. Why is that so important to you, to kind of make sure you're around the next generation of this world? And as well, what are maybe some of the things that the young kids have taught you and to kind of help your life as well?
Yeah, I would say for me, again, like so much of my pain in my life has brought me purpose. And
Yeah.
that's where I found meaning, is when I'm looking at young kids, I'm looking at the younger version of myself, whether that's kindergarten, middle school, high school, college, and college is probably like the audience I'm around most because I'm living on a college campus right now, finishing my
Yeah.
PhD. But like when I'm looking at these kids, I see so much of myself in the insecure and the self-conscious person who felt like he wasn't good enough, who felt like I dream of being a talk show host, but nobody in my environment ever did anything close to that. So to
Yeah.
them, it's unrealistic and it's impossible. But to me, I always believed it. But because I was scared and I was nervous, I'm looking for other people to just say, like, yes, you can do it. And nobody around me was able to say that. So much of my work with kids is letting them know the stuff that I wish I knew. Really try, like, honestly, like being my own hero that I needed when I was younger. Letting them know, like, yo, you good enough. Because so many times, I can't even tell you, bro. Like, so many times I'd be at home by myself, beating myself up over one interaction. Oh my gosh, I said this one thing. I should have said this. Oh, I'm so stupid. I'm so dumb.
Yeah.
Every time I'm walking in a bathroom, I'm not looking at the mirror because I don't feel like I'm attractive. All the times that I'm hanging around with my friends, and because I've experienced abandonment from friends, constantly wondering, are they gonna push me out of their life or should I just run away from them? You know what I mean? Like, these are things that I experienced when I was younger, or even the fact of like going to college, getting a degree, graduating with dean's lists and always having really good grades, and then graduating and not having a plan. And myself, like, yo, this whole time I was in school, nobody really told me it's not just about school. It's about networking. It's about meeting people. It's about connecting people. And my mind is like, oh yeah, if I get all these good grades, then it's gonna work out. And it didn't work out for me. So I just try to put myself in a position to tell kids, to tell college students, to tell anybody, you know what I mean? Like, this is what you might experience. This is what can help you. This is something you need to know about yourself. And just take all the advice that I wish somebody would pour into me, and I pour into other people in the same way.
Throughout, man, I know you've done a lot of interviews over the years, but has there been like one response to a question that maybe you've asked someone that has kind of just stuck out more than any other responses you've gotten from people over the years of you doing interviews?
Wow, that's a really great question. Um, I don't, I don't think there's necessarily a response.
Hmm.
Well, I'll put it this way. I think what surprises me more than anything is the level of depth of people's response. So it's not necessarily what they're saying, but how deep they're saying it, or
Yeah.
how much context they're giving, or how open and vulnerable they are. And like, I know some of my work is creating that space, but sometimes it catches me off guard because I've had moments where people would share things that I never would imagine they would share. And like, with knowing the person or getting a vibe for the person and who they are, they'll they'll share something, and right after they'll talk about like, wow, I've never said this to like anybody. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, I felt like really, really, really comfortable telling you this. You know what I mean? And I think that response is always very shocking to me.
Yeah.
But the things that like really, really stood out to me are like one in particular, or I guess a couple. It's just when people open up, and then you know how like the kind of back and forth of like, oh, you said something. It's like, oh man, wow, I can really relate to this, and like
Yeah.
my experience was this, and then their response would be like, that was me too. I mean, I think like moments like that are always those moments for me where it's just like, I'm not alone. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that always hits me hard because again, like when I look back at like when I was younger, I felt alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there's so many moments where I'd be feeling alone. And when I talk to people and I'm just like, oh wow, like, yeah, we have two completely different experiences. We grown up in two different places, but we relate to this.
Yeah.
It's like, man, if I relate to you in this way, if you did grew up and you didn't feel like you belong, and I didn't feel like I belonged, then how many other people in this world feel the same way? I think like those are kind of like the responses or the reception that always like feels and was like, oh man, I gotta keep going. Like I gotta keep like, oh man, I don't know who I'm gonna talk to next, but I need to figure it out because I wonder what they're going through. So I can't recall like one specific thing, but just more so the overall arching like openness and vulnerability and relativity is something that always is like just hits home to me.
I know you've done a lot of different things, but you've also done some media work in terms of like directing some short films as well, and a little bit of photography as well. Just talk about just the ideology behind some of the things you do in terms of that media standpoint, and as well, uh, kind of what have you gotten out of doing films that maybe you haven't gotten out of any other the other works you've done in your lifetime?
Yeah, the beauty of film is you have to be a lot more intentional with telling a story.
Yeah,
So like when it comes to interviewing, you're packing a story or you're trying to get somebody to share a story.
yeah,
But when it comes to like films and like short films, you're essentially creating a story and then you're performing the story.
yeah.
And I think for me, as somebody who again, I love writing, so I love the challenge of trying to like write a script and make something really conducive that makes sense and has a
Hmm.
thoughtful, meaningful message. That's one side of it, but I also love the idea of just being able to perform a story or like create it together. And for me, photography was like one of the earliest, like buying a camera and picking up a camera and using a camera was one of like the first things I did. And again, to be honest with people, like I picked up a camera because I didn't feel like I was picture perfect. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What they call say, I'm not perfect. I'm not picture perfect, but I'm still worth the picture. I didn't feel like I was
Yeah.
worth the picture, but I knew like when people took my, I knew what I hated. I knew sometimes I felt like people be like, "Yo, you knew that was a bad picture. Why you posting?" You know what I mean? So for me, it was more so a sense like I want to learn how to use camera. I want to learn how to use angles, but I also want to show the beauty in other people that I felt like I can never beauty when it comes to me being photogenic. Let me help somebody find that within themselves. So like picking up a camera and like record or take photos. Like, oh man, I'm learning how to use the camera and the lighting and all these different things.
Hmm.
And then there was this guy when I was growing up. His name is Levi Maestro, and he used to do this basically a series called Maestro Knows, and he would go around on a skateboard around Los Angeles, and he just talk to different people, interview people, and there's like a honestly, it was like the first vlog that was like really in um the like YouTube era. In my eyes, it was like one of the earliest
Yeah.
vlogs. And I used to be so inspired by his work, right? And he used to always have this saying that I embodied for myself throughout my life is speak things into existence, and the power of just like working and saying, I'm going to do this and then making it happen and actualizing it. So like, because of him, I was always inspired to like use a camera and like learn how to video. And like, I feel like the first videos I made because I was in perfectionism rather than actually chasing like creating a good work, I was always like stressing myself out and I would throw the camera and be like, I'm never using this again. And then somehow I always would like pick it up and let me try again. But to answer your question, when it comes to like short films, to me, it was always just a way to express myself. You know what I mean? Find different meanings and ways to express my thoughts, my feelings, and express other people too, and like show the beauty of other people. So yeah, it definitely helped along the journey because now when I'm in, you know, working in different spaces, I'm able to add to that conversation and add value in ways in which I feel like sometimes, you know, creatives kind of like limit themselves to one lane of what they do. But
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer of like really becoming a jack of all trades. And you don't
Hmm.
even have to be great at it, everything you do, but just having knowledge and experience in it helps when working with people.
What kind of like give us like a breakdown of like when you're doing like a film. How do you kind of like go about like how long does it usually take? Like what how do you figure out like how to edit certain things? Like how do you decide to use this, maybe not use this clip? Like kind of just give us like a
Mhm.
breakdown of what goes into when you're doing a film, what all it takes, how long that may take, just the editing process behind it. Like kind of go into the in-depth of part of doing what you do in that turn.
Yeah. First, I got to shout out my friends Ahmad, shout out Damien. I have to shout out Desmond because it takes a team, right?
Mhm.
It's people who make films by themselves, but for me, I always had a team of people surrounding me, right? So where I worked on maybe like the script and finding the actors and finding locations and some points, right? They did more of the technical work with the
Yeah.
creative side of it, of like the film work and um, things in that nature. But I would say for us too, like we took a very untraditional approach of trying to shoot a film in 24 hours. You know what I mean? But I would say really like the process for us was, getting into a room with each other. So finding community, finding like-minded people and saying, hey, let's do this. Or really, are you interested in doing it? But for us, it was more
Mhm.
so like, hey, let's do this. Then it gets to a point like, all right, so what's the story? What do we want to tell? What's the message that
Yeah.
we want to get away? And then start to writing and figuring those things out. Once you have the story together and you get an idea of like, okay, this is the characters, this is the locations, this is what we need. Then the next part is really just finding those people and finding those actors. And again, because we're very untraditional and we were based in Kentucky and there's not that many like actors around that we have access to, it was really like, all right, so what friends would be willing to like do this with us, right? Um, Finding those people, getting them together, and then just really allowing the creatives, and I say creatives for them because I was more on like the acting, business, writing side, and they were the like real film. All right, this angle is going to be perfect. This is the vision.
Yeah.
This is the editing, and letting the people, the team, do their work. You know what I mean? Like everybody has a position, and you got to allow everybody to show up in the ways that they can. And for me, editing the short films was never my thing. I would love to like be around and see kind of like the progress and whatnot, but I think there's an element of trust, of just trusting the people who you're working with, which can be very, very difficult. But when you
Yeah.
find the right people, it's so much easier than what people think.
Yeah. I want to ask you, you do so much, man. Kind of what outside of your work do you do? Just like maybe hobbies, things to just keep your mind at a state. What are some of the things you do outside of your work that just kind of keep you who you are, keep you calm?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And if one of my friends, Michaela, shout out to you, is listening, she would be like, "You better not lie." I'll be completely honest. I am so much of a workaholic
Mm-hmm.
that so much of what I do is like if I'm not doing school, I'm doing something creative. If I'm not doing something creative, I'm in the gym. If I'm not in the gym, I'm doing school. Like those are like the
Yeah.
big three like life looks like right now. But what I'm trying to do is find more time to like rest and relax. So some of the things that I do like in between my free time when I'm not reading, and most of the time I'm reading for my own like career and better understanding of my work. So I can't even count that. But so some of the things that I do is like I go for walks.
Yeah.
And walking for me is like very, very therapeutic. I watch a lot of different like anime when I'm just chilling. Right now, I'm rewatching One Piece. That's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
my like background show where I could just have on TV and kind of like cool,
Yeah.
chill and relax. And then I've really been trying to be a lot more intentional with making time to call or hang out with friends. Because one thing about me is like I get so wrapped up in my life and so much wrapped up in my work and what I'm trying to do that I feel like I don't always create the space for the people closest to me. It's
Yeah.
like the people who I don't know, I'm creating a space and allowing them to talk and interview and doing all these different things. But then when it comes to people close to me, sometimes like I'm very neglectful, not because I want to be, because it's just like, man, I'm so caught up and now I got to do this and now I got to do this. I forget like, bro, we haven't caught up in damn near 2 weeks to a month. So let me
Yeah.
like make time for that. So I'm just trying to, make space for people that I love. Um, every once in a while, make sure I'm watching some type of anime, mindless activity where I'm just sitting on the couch laughing at like corny anime
Yeah.
jokes and whatnot. And yeah, to be honest with you, I got to do a better job of not being so wrapped up in work.
I
But I
feel you.
feel as if I graduate in May, and once I graduate, I want to make sure that like my portfolio is set to be
Yeah.
able to set that next level of my career up.
Yeah.
So there's a part of me that's like, yeah, I got to chill, but at the same time, it's like,
I feel
nah,
you.
you also got to hit the gas too, bro. So
Yeah.
like, it's a balance though. So I'm
Yeah.
learning, I'm figuring it out, but I'm thankful to have people in my life who are very supportive and very understanding of
That's good.
my ways for sure.
Yeah, I love that, man. And I want to ask you because I kind of ask this all the time because I'm a big music person and I kind of just love to depict other people's music minds. So I just want to ask you, like, who are some of your artists that you listen to? Like, does your music playlist kind of be a little bit more diverse? Like, what do you listen to on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, on a day to day, as people know, Jermaine Cole, J. Cole, the GOAT, the one who won the chose peace. I don't care what nobody else say. I listen to a lot of Cole, Bryson Tiller. He's one of my favorite
Hmm.
R&B artists. Cole and Tiller are the two people who I listen to a lot.
Hmm.
But I also love jazz. Miles Davis is a big influence. John Coltrane, those like artists who I could listen to and just kind of vibe and think. And I'm
Yeah,
also like as much as I love hip hop, like I'm such a lover. It's crazy. Like R&B is my thing. So any kind of like R&B music, whether it's throwback to today, I'm usually listening to that to really just get in the zone to write and kind of like mellow out.
um, I know you do some podcast work as well. So just kind of going to talk about what was the inspiration of starting your own podcast as well. And I want to ask you, you guys talk about like different topics for each episode and going into in depth about really crucial conversations. What is the
Mhm.
process of maybe of coming up with the topics that you guys talk about? Like, how do you guys come up with, we're going to talk about this today, or we're not going to talk about this? Like, how do you kind of come up with the conversations about for whichever episode you're talking?
Yeah. Uh, for anybody who's aspiring to like make a podcast, create a podcast, and to me, like podcast is a new SoundCloud rapper,
Yeah.
right? Like everybody and their mama got a podcast. But it's, as you know, right, when it comes to production, when it comes to finding guests, reaching out, promoting, it's not an easy job.
Yeah.
I want to be very, very clear with people. Like, I'm currently on my eighth or ninth podcast. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like, so it's been a journey
Yeah.
nonetheless. And even the one that I'm doing now, which is the interview series, I don't fully consider it a podcast
Hmm.
because I strategically use it to interview people who I feel like I can collaborate or network with in the future. So it's my
Yeah.
way of, I'm a firm believer, like I have one conversation with somebody, then I can get the vibe for them and I can know if they're going to be in my life forever, if they're going to be
Yeah.
like, oh no, this was a cool time. So I really use that interview series to build a network and build a team. Um, so when it comes to really that podcast, like the current one I'm doing, my approach to that is really unpacking people's stories in a way that not only will help other people and see a version of them that they don't understand,
Mhm.
but it's also for me to understand like who is this person for real.
Yeah.
And I like measure success based on really for myself is like, do I get a good vibe from this person? Is this somebody who I could see myself like really hanging out with? Is this
Yeah.
somebody who I could see myself saying like when I talk to my mentees here on campus, like yo, I would love to connect you with this person? Or do I get this sense of like, I love what you're doing, I love the work, but maybe it's not aligned with kind of like where I'm at or where I'm trying to go or what they're we don't align or you know what I mean? There's so many different factors, but I would say the ideas of like coming up with podcasts, it really just depends on the overall goal of it. So like I've had podcasts in the past where it was about trying to reach some of the biggest people ever. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And like, yeah, I had a few and it was a cool moment, but it wasn't really all that fulfilling. I've
Yeah.
had podcasts where it was like me and a friend and we were just having genuine conversations and it was really dope, but we didn't have the consistency, right? So
Yeah.
the best advice that I've ever gotten, and the reason why I created the interview series now is that I kind of got overwhelmed with doing podcasts because, as you know, it's difficult, right? Especially when
Yeah.
you put all the time and effort and energy, and you only get in like 5 or 6 people listening. Like it hurts. I don't care what nobody say. It hurts when that happens.
Yeah.
So for the longest, I stopped doing it, but I still was like, yeah, I want to be a talk show host. Shout out to Tony. If you listening, I love you. You really, really changed my life with this advice. But she was like, yo, you got to stop doing these podcasts for viewers.
Yeah.
Rather than do it for viewers, you need to lock in and focus and think about how does this opportunity make you a better host?
Yeah.
What are you practicing listening skills? Are you intentionally listening to not what people are saying, but what are people not saying? Are you paying attention to their mannerisms? Can you tell when You make somebody feel really, really safe and comfortable, and you hit something that like really inspire them to talk more, or are you boring them? And that's what I'm doing with my interview series. As much as I use it to network, I'm using it to practice all my soft skills and the in between skills that I feel like that next chapter, when I really put a full production energy time into a podcast, now I'm able to feel more like a creative weapon when I'm talking to them. Like, "Ooh, I know how to get this person to open up. I know you said this, but I actually hear what's in between." So now I really just focus on personal skills, you know what I mean? And what I'm doing to essentially like work out that muscle so that when I'm actually create or I actually get those opportunities, I'm a lot more locked in and I'm a lot more ready now. And I feel like that's exactly what you're doing too. You know what I mean? Like the questions you're asking, listening in between. Oh, you said this, but I'm curious about what you're saying there. Like these are the ways in which this podcast, whether it's runs on forever and it's like the biggest success, or if it leads you to the next step, you're learning
Yeah.
these skills to get you to that place. And I think that's what how I handle podcasts now. So now,
Yeah.
like if I get to make a video and it's like, oh man, 79 people listen to it, it's like, oh cool, that's dope. But I don't even put that much value into that or into I put it now more into like the relationship I create or the
Yeah.
skills that I learn or the comfort. I'm like, oh yeah, man, I'm really starting to get this. Because
Yeah.
the views and all that other stuff, it's gonna come one day. But right now, while it's not here, let me make sure I'm ready for those moments.
I love that because I mean I've experienced that. And there will be times where you only get like you feel like you've done your best, conversation ever. You only get like 100 views, and I had to think like that may not what I want or what I expect this to be, but maybe I changed 100 people's lives, and I couldn't have done that if I wasn't doing what I'm doing. But as well, you talked about the conversations and the connections. I think that's really big too, because my mom was always big on, it's not what you know, but it's who you know. And so like I've
Mm-hmm.
gained so much responsibility just off being a connector with people. So I appreciate you saying that because it's real, and I don't think that. I mean, I'm kind of open up to people watching and listening, but like I don't think people understand the like you said, like I don't really do it for views, but I've had conversations. And I'm like, dang, I wish this would get more notoriety than it is because I feel like this can really help or change people's lives. So I definitely get what you're saying. And I want to ask you, and you may or may not have an answer to this question. That's okay, but I want to ask you, like, with everything that you do you have an end goal? Like, is there something like there's a certain place that you want to end up, or a certain thing that you want to do? Like, do you have an end goal, or are you just kind of doing everything that you want to do within your lifetime and just going one day at a time with everything?
I definitely have an end goal. I think it's like very important to know where you want to go and
Hmm.
then being flexible in how you get there.
Yeah.
So my end goal for me is to be a media mogul, right? Like I want to be like the Issa Raes or the Oprah Winfrey's
Yeah.
who has the production companies, who has the ability to jump into like, okay, I could make short films or I could create a TV show or I can create this radio podcast station or I could put other people on. Um, like I want to have that financial freedom and
Yeah.
that business mentality to be able to like go through these different avenues, put other people in positions to win, while also giving back to the community. So creating youth programs, creating leadership programs, creating some of the things that helped me become the man that I am today and pour into like these scholarship funds for college students. You know what I mean? So that's where I want to go. I'm
Hmm.
just very, very flexible on how I get there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because I think it's again, you can't climb Everest in a day. So it's like each step I take, each time I'm climbing, it looks different than what I imagined. But I firmly believe I'm gonna get there. A lot of people think because I talk about how much I want to be a talk show host, they think that's like the end all be all. But that's a small step into a larger plan. It's just once you get that access and once you get that notoriety, then how do I leverage it to really turn it into a business? How do I leverage this to really turn this into an opportunity to create space for other people? How do I really leverage this in order to now myself in a position to do a lot more community work than I'm doing right now? So yeah, I definitely know where I want to go, and I definitely want to be one of them ones when it comes to like media in general. But time being, I'm just kind of enjoying the journey and with the understanding that I'm going to get there. It's not a matter of How is it's just a matter of when. When I get there, I'll get there. But time being, just enjoying the ride.
If you can go back like 5 years, what would you tell yourself 5 years ago? Like, what would you tell yourself? What advice would you give yourself 5 years ago to kind of help 5 years ago you to kind of prepare for the next 5 years of journey?
5 years ago. 5 years ago. So I turned 30 this year. 5 years ago, I'm gonna say 25. I'll be 24, 25. And I think that's when I really had, that's funny. I had like almost like a midlife crisis. I remember in 25 and I was by myself and I drove to this place that I like to like. I was back home. I was living with my parents. This was around almost around like pandemic time, just before the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic type joint. But I remember driving to this place and I'm looking out into this lake and I'm telling myself, like, bro, you got to do better. Like you are not happy. You are not where you want to be. You know you're meant for more. You
Yeah.
got to do better. And I wish I could pull up on myself in that moment and really just tell myself, like, bro, don't even trip. Like, you gonna figure it out.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, I'm always been one of those people who, like, I knew I was meant for more. I knew my heart called out for more,
Mm-hmm.
but I was always, I just doubted the process. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
was like, yeah, I know I can do this. I know I'm capable, but I don't see how I can get there. And I feel like I was looking too far ahead and I wasn't able to take just a step. Right. So I was telling myself, like, bro, just don't even trip. Enjoy it. Enjoy these moments. You know what I mean? Like, yo, you at home with your parents. Enjoy it while you're
Yeah.
here. You know what I mean? You have people that love you. Embrace it. You have people that see the vision and believe in you more than you even believe in yourself going into those relationships. You know what I mean? I think we myself, I'm speaking for myself, but I'm also speaking for the people who are listening who are in the same
Yeah.
boat. It's like we're so hard and so critical of ourselves because we expect so much of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're not even recognizing that, like, some of the ways in which we're living life now were times that we used to pray for. And I wish that's just some things I reminded myself. It's like, bro, you pray for this. Where you are right now, like, you pray for this and
Yeah.
enjoy it, embrace it. Like, there was a time you were 21 and you were like, damn, I can't wait till I'm 24, 25 and I can do all these different things. And sure, it looked different than the initial image, but you pray to be here. And a lot of people don't make it here. So it's about perspective.
Yeah.
Like, really
Oh, yeah.
give yourself the perspective of saying, like, yeah, you might not be the richest, the flyest, you might not have the dream job and all these different things, but you got love in your life. You got people that care about you, and there's a lot of people that don't have that. So I think I would just tell myself, like, yeah, don't trip. Have perspective.
If you could have dinner with 5 people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Dang, dang, dang. That's hard, bro. Hard. 5 people. Uh, Number one, my nana. She passed away last year. You know what I mean? So just to like talk to her again.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
for
understand,
sure.
man.
Number one. Number two, J. Cole.
Mm-hmm.
He's been very influential. You know what I mean? As far as like musically, like his music saved my life, gave me so
Yeah.
much perspective, like brought me so many moments. Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
Oprah really watching Oprah with my nana growing up is what inspired me to want to even be a talk show host. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So
I love that.
being able to talk to her would be so incredible. Issa Rae, the older I've
Mm-hmm.
gotten, the more I've been inspired by Issa Rae and her career trajectory and the things that she was able to do. So I say Cole, Oprah, Issa, my nana, and then that fifth spot. Ooh, that fifth spot, I'll probably have to give to. That's tough.
This is always the hardest one.
Yeah, this is the hardest one. That fifth spot. You know what? I'm gonna go with Jay Shetty. Jay Shetty is a talk show host. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of his, for the people who don't know, his talk show right now is really based in wellness and healing, and it's the space that I'm really trying to be in with amplifying Black voices.
Yeah.
He talks to everybody. I'm willing to talk to everybody, but I want to be more specific in amplifying Black voices. But he's definitely one of those people right now who I've been studying his career, studying his trajectory, studying how to ask questions and whatnot. So I definitely throw him on that list right now.
I love that, man. Because those kind of, I always say those answers kind of give a little bit more in depth about who you are as a person. So I appreciate you for sharing that, man. And I want to ask you, this is something like always like have to ask at the end. Because I'm really big on legacy. And just
Mm-hmm.
doing things that I'm making sure that this is what I want to do in my life, and this is what I want to be remembered for, and these are things that I think that I'm meant to be on earth for. So I want to ask you, what do you want your legacy to be? When people hear Nigel Marcellus, what do you want them to remember about who you were as a person and what you did in your lifetime?
I want them to remember that I made a difference. I wasn't perfect, that I was flawed, but I was still worthy. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And that even through insecurities, even through fear, even through not always being the most confident, that I was able to pave a way and create a lane for myself and open up the door for so many other people. You know what I mean? Like I hope when people see me or see the work that I do, it empowers them to feel as if they can do it too, and not do it in a way where it's like copy and paste and I'm going 100%. I don't want to be him. Like, no, I don't want you to be me. The world has enough of me right now. Like, I want you to be you, but I want you to do it in the most you way possible, right? So I
yeah,
just want people to be able to understand it's like your dream matters, who you are matters, the love that you're striving for and you know you're deserving of, it matters and it's possible and it can happen for you, and it doesn't have to be toxic. It doesn't have to be, you know what I mean, this like struggle love, the struggle dream, the struggle pursuit. And of course, like there's elements of that in whatever we do, but it doesn't have to define like what you want and what you're going for. So I think for me it's just like somebody who just wants to make a difference and make the world a better place. I simplify it. He was a guy who made a difference and made the world a better place by even a small percentage. That means
yeah.
everything to me.
I appreciate that, man. And I'm gonna try not to rant for too long here, but I'm really glad we had this conversation because people that know that when I finished season 3 last year, I took like a year off, and I wanted to do different things, and I've been able to do that with season 4 and have different conversations instead of just my focal and people in sports. And so, like, this conversation really means a lot to
Mm-hmm.
me. And I just want to say thank you for what you've shared and what we talked about because. It's important to me. Like I think that these are things that people need to talk more about, and these are things that people need to hear more about as well. And so I'm glad we were able to have a in-depth conversation about who you are, what you do, and what your aims in life are. And so I appreciate you because, like, and I said this about your parents, but like there was a video that you interviewed your parents and you asked them like what was like how to make a marriage last 41 years. And your mom gave like I told people like the most perfect answer ever. And for me, the just something simple like that. Like people will never think about like an interview with your parents and what your parents said about marriage may change someone's lives, but it changed the way I thought about love and how I looked at what I wanted
Mm-hmm.
in life in the future. And so I just want to say thank you, man, because like whether you realize it or not, what you're doing is honestly helping other people's lives. So I just want to say thank you and continue doing what you're doing because I know it right now we kind of talk about things that may not seem like a lot, but it truly is. So continue going and doing what you're doing within your lifetime. And it means a lot to me and other people as well. So thank you, man.
Yeah, nah, bro. I want to first of all thank you. Like that
Of
compliment
course.
means more than you could ever know because
Of
as you
course.
know, like it's really hard putting yourself out there, and especially
Yeah.
like for a lot of topics, there's a level of vulnerability and openness,
Yeah.
and especially as a black man, it's not always easy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to be
Exactly.
affirmed in that by a black man, like it means the because a lot of times you get that from women, but it's different when it comes from somebody who look like you. For one, but two, I also want to give you your flowers. because I've never met you before. It's the first conversation I've had with you.
Mm-hmm.
And the way in which you ask questions is very intentional. The space in which you create is very incredible. And I think, especially when it comes to like Netta, she's somebody who I trust absolutely hard. You know what I mean? And for her to like put us in conversation and be like, yo, y'all need to talk. To me, that's like an angel in human form connecting people who like for this point on, me and you are connected, bro. Like if you need anything, I got you. If I can help you in your journey, bro, it's like it's a lifetime thing because the work that you do is so important. And I could tell not just by like the interviews that I watch, but really like in conversation, like you are really, really intentional with your platform. You're really intentional in your questions. And even the way in which you ask questions sets people up to be able to share vulnerability, to share their openness, share what they're going through, which helps other people listening be able to like really, really tap in. So I encourage you to like keep going. And even in that year that you took a break, bro, if you got to take another year, take that break, do what you got to do, and don't beat yourself up for it because so much of the journey is doing the best that we can. So like the best looks different every day. Sometimes it looks like the podcast is gonna be on fire. Other times it's like, yo, I need a break to switch up my mental, change a little thing, to try something different. But the fact you came back to it, it already made you a better person and more intentional in how you ask questions, how you use your platform, who you ask. So all the things you go through, I promise you, there's purpose into it. And I could see even through this one conversation with you, like whatever your dream, whatever your goal is, bro, you're gonna get there. Like there's no doubt in my mind that you're gonna get there. So thank you for sharing space. Thank you for allowing me to be on your platform. And I'm excited to watch your journey so much because I know, like, bro, you are for sure one of them ones. Like you're gonna get there.
I appreciate it, man. And shout out to Danetta, man. She's been a really big help in my life. And I appreciate her a lot. Like we've had a conversation on the show before. So you guys should go check that out. But she's really been behind the scenes, a really big help in my life. Like she's got me through a lot. It got me through a lot of connections as well. So shout out to Danetta. And again, thank you, man. And thank you guys for listening. And real quick, man, if you don't mind, could you share your social media so people can follow you, reach out to you, share whatever you do if they want to as well?
Yeah, for sure. Real quick, Netta, if you're listening to this, you're fake shy. We hear all that introverted talk. You're not introverted, girl. You extroverted. That's all I'm gonna say right there. You'll probably flame me, but it's love. Yeah. So my social media, Nigel Marcellus, NIGEL MARCELLUS. You can find me on really any platform from Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, Threads, you name it. I probably got it. And yeah, man, appreciate the opportunity. Make sure y'all follow me, engage with the content, and I'm very, very, very personable. So
of course, man. Appreciate you again for having me. I hope you guys watching and listening really were able to take something out of this. Like I mean there's a lot that when I stopped season 3 and I started season 4, I wanted to do more in depth instead of just people in sports. And so that's what I've been able to do this season. And this conversation really just kind of in depth to what that meant a lot to me. So I'm really glad I was able to do this. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Make sure you subscribe, leave a like, and continue tuning in, man. We got one more episode of season 4. So thank you guys. God bless and take care, everybody.